What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So in today's video we're going to be back working on my NB Miata. So if you watched a couple of the previous videos I've done on this thing, you would know we got the old motor ripped out of this thing, and then I rolled it outside, got the engine bay all pressure washed, got it all cleaned up, rewrapped the wiring harness, got it all tucked in there, making it look nice, got it all pretty much fresh and ready to go. And then we also finished up working on the motor, getting the timing all put back together, and then kind of painting up a few things, getting a new valve cover gasket on there, making everything look pretty, and pretty much getting it ready to get dropped into the car, but kind of was on a standstill waiting on some parts. So finally got all those in. I did pick up all these from Guten Type Racing, so super shout out to them because they got this stuff super quick. Wasn't cheap, but it is what it is. You gotta pay the price for nice parts. I got a stainless steel clutch line that goes from the master all the way down to the slave, so I had to replace the whole hard line going all the way across, so that'd be sweet. I got a skid plate that actually bolts into the little U section in the subframe, so that's gonna be nice. I really wanted that before I get the motor in, because drilling the holes for this thing ain't gonna be fun, and as you can tell, there's a few of them, so I'm gonna actually start working on that first. But got some new engine risers, so these are 1/4 inch thick plates that just slide in the engine mounts. And I also picked up some new engine mounts off eBay, just some simple Delrin solid motor mounts with some threads on each side with some nuts. Pretty simple, but I'll show you guys actually what I do with these when I start installing them with the little spacers as well. I think I might actually add some more washers just to try to get the motor as high as possible inside the engine bay. I might even need to notch the hood how high I want it, but I think I'm going to start working on the skid plate just because that's going to take a little bit and kind of a pain to do, since I got to put it in here, mark all my holes, and drill probably I think 9 or 10 holes kind of going around this whole lip inside of here. But that plate actually sits on the bottom side of the subframe, so it's nice that I have the motor out, because then I can just drop this in, mark it all from the top, do it all from the top instead of having to drill from the bottom. It's a pain in the ass. So I think I'm actually going to start working on that, get that all kind of mocked up, get it all my holes drilled, and then I can actually kind of test fit it in the meantime. I don't think I'm going to mount it up yet, just because I know putting in the motor, mounting up those tranny bolts, the starter, and a couple things, it's going to be kind of a pain in the ass to do with that skid plate in there, because it goes to a little bit past the transmission. So I'll show you guys once I get it all kind of mocked up in there, and we'll see how she's looking. So I got the skid plate all mocked up in there, and she's looking good. Just got 2 bolts holding it up for now. One thing I will say, if anyone is mounting up the same skid plate, do mark a hole on each side and then lift up the skid plate and bolt it up, so you can at least make sure all your holes line up completely. I know a couple of mine I had to oval out a little bit to get them right in there, but she's all good now. I got most of my holes drilled out except for those last 2 ones. I'll have to drill those from the bottom because the transmission's kind of in the way there. But other than that, I can't really do anything else till the motor is in, so I just ended up swapping the stainless steel clutch line, get that done, get it knocked out, get the old hard line, rubber line, and this old stupid coil all deleted out of there finally. So that's looking nice and clean. So at this point, I'm pretty much ready to get the motor dropped in there. I think I'm gonna pull off a few pieces off this thing, like the coolant hose. I think I need to pull off the coil pack, definitely the header, a few little bits just to be able to make it easier to get it dropped in and out of there. So I think I'm gonna pull all that off. So first thing tomorrow when I get home from work, I can get ready to drop this baby in, get the new motor mounts, engine risers all mounted up, and actually see what she's looking like with the 1.8 high compression motor inside of there. So catch you guys tomorrow when we're getting this motor all loaded up in there. What's up, guys? So it's next day now. It's finally time to get the high compression motor into the NB and finally stop looking at this empty engine bay and this engine on the floor. So as you can tell, got a few things off, got the header off, got the bolts out for the AC compressor, pulled the coolant rear route off. I'm gonna leave the coil pack on for now. I have to pull that off later whenever I put it back on, but got the chain hooked up, got my engine hoist back in here, and ready to start slapping the motor back in here. And as you can kind of tell, I am by myself, so I'm gonna attempt to try to do this by myself. We'll see what happens. Normally I have an extra person just give me an extra set of hands, but I want to attempt to try to do it by myself. If I can't do it, if anything, I'll call a buddy and have him help me out, but that'll be a few hours till he gets off work, and I'm kind of eager to get this done because I really want to get it finished up by the end of the weekend. So I'm gonna see what I can do today. But since I'm actually mounting up the motor, I can talk about the motor mounts, since I have a little kind of plan I want to do with these. So these things are some just solid Delrin motor mounts off eBay. They're actually from Level Zero Motorsports. So they're just a solid Delver and bushing. And this is actually the new design. I have their old design in this car, which is actually kind of a little bit thicker than this. And it has a through bolt design with just a nut on the other side. And it's kind of a pain because you cannot get to the bolt from the inside of the mount here. So this new design with the stud and the bolt on each side is so much nicer. And then it actually lets you do this where you're able to take out one stud a little bit and then thread in the other one as deep as it can go. So then it shortened this one up to 3/4 of an inch, and then you can tighten this one back up and it lengthens this one up to a little bit over an inch. So it shortens up one side, lengthens out the other, and actually works out perfectly because I got one mocked up here. Because the short side only needs to go through the motor mount right there. And as you can tell, it's got enough thread there. And then since I'm actually doing the engine risers, you can tell with the longer side, the engine risers fit in there perfectly, gives you enough thread still, and it still has to go through the subframe. So this should have totally enough thread to hook on there, no problem, and then give you all the thread you need to raise up the motor and do all that. So now that I'm getting the motor knocked out, I'm gonna get those all mounted up and then finally get this engine in the car. So probably gonna throw you guys up on the tripod over there or something and time lapse it, because I bet it's probably gonna take me an hour or so to get this thing in the car and get it all kind of situated for the most part, like the motor mounts in, a couple of training bolts, just kind of be able to get it mocked up and pull off the engine hoist and all that. So I'm gonna get to work on that and we'll see what I can do. I had to stop the time lapse for this because I literally just got the motor officially off the engine hoist, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, is this thing really sitting where it's at? And it literally is sitting on the mount. The mounts aren't bolted up into the subframe yet, but everything else is tight and bolted up. So this is technically where the motor is gonna sit. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh boy, this is gonna be fun to fit under the hood. So I guess we'll see how that goes, and that'll be for another day issue. But this is gonna be sick for a stance car, because now that oil pan is way above the subframe. So finally the motor is in. So I'm gonna finish up getting a few things in, maybe get most of the training bolts in, just because I only got, I think, 2 or 3 in right now. Just kind of get everything kind of bolted in, get it mocked up, and then I'll get back with you. So I've been working away on the Miata, as you can tell with my hair and my hands. Finally got the engine in there, got all the motor mounts all tightened up. I even got all the transmission bolts in there. I even swapped in the starter, you might be able to see it. Kind of see it high neck down there. But I got all those tightened up. Once I got like 2 or 3 transmission bolts in, I ended up tightening up the motor. Big mistake, because once I started trying to put the rest of the transmission bolts in, none of them wanted to line up for shit. And it was a pain in the ass, so I had to get that hoist back out, lift up the whole motor, get them all bolted in, tighten them up, then put the motor back down. So that's just a little tip for any guys that are doing the same thing. But now this is a fun time. I can actually start slapping on all the goodies, like the header, got the coolant reroute, got the skid plate, I do have the intake in the back, I have the aluminum radiator go in. So I really think I can bust my ass tonight and get this thing running, because right now it is 5:50, or no, 5:30. So I think I can bust my ass for a few hours and possibly get this thing run for the first time, because I'm looking at it right now and a lot of this seems to go together pretty dang quick. Mounting up the motor and transmission is really the hard part, so the rest is easy, just wiring it all up, putting all the little simple stuff on. So I'm gonna see what I can get done tonight and maybe hear this thing fire up. So I'm gonna catch back with you when I got an update on this thing. So it is currently 7:30. I'm working for about 2 hours and got a lot of this done. So this thing is pretty much almost ready to start at this point. Just need the intake and the radiator, and then I also need to torque down the crank pulley bolt, because I remember I never got to do that yet since I didn't have the trans or anything to really hold it. So I'll get that knocked out, but I got the coolant reroute all mounted up. Even got my feed lines all done up. So this is the feed line going right in, and it's just a rubber hose with a couple clamps on it. I did make sure to go all the way past the little kind of lip that the connectors sit on, but stock line just goes right to the pressure regulator right there. So that's all good. Got the couple lines and all the wiring set up over here. more wiring going into these plugs, and then I just got these last two that just go to the intake, so those would be perfect. Got the power steering and AC compressor all bolted up with the little belt, so that's all tensioned up. Got the header and the O2 sensor all bolted up, so that should be pretty much good to go. I might slap on the center section of the exhaust just so I have the secondary O2 sensor and not have any problems with this thing running weird at all in the first startup. But at this point, should be super quick to slap the intake and radiator on there, maybe the mid pipe as well, and we can finally hear this thing start up and run for the first time. So I'll catch you guys here in a little bit once we're ready to start her up, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so I got the intake and radiator back in. I got the bottom radiator hose all bolted up, but this top one just doesn't seem to have enough room to kind of reach it right there. So I'm just gonna have to get a new little flexible hose out to replace that, but got everything all back together, and it's finally time to see if she'll start. So I got the battery pack on it right now. Make sure this thing's on. We're good there. And I already tested it a few times, primed it, make sure I didn't have any leaks. So this is the moment of truth. The only thing is I do not have a clutch, so the clutch pedal pretty much just goes to the floor. So, moment of truth. Let's see if this thing will start. So as you guys just saw, this thing finally started up for the first time and sounded really good. The only thing is it did really have a high idle. It was idling at like 2,500, almost 3 grand RPM. And since I didn't really have any coolant in this thing, I wanted to get it shut off because figure out what that issue is and then at least get some coolant in it or get some water in it just so I'm not burning up the water pump. But in the meantime, I just ended up slapping up this coolant hose real quick. It's super tight against everything and touching. It's not how it's going to be set up. I'm going to redo this hose. I'm going to try to source like one of those little flexible ones or something tomorrow at one of the parts stores. If not, I'll order it up. But this will just at least get some water in the system just so I can at least run it a little bit longer, hear it run, and then also try to tune the idle if it ends up just being an idle issue or if there's actually like a vacuum leak or something going on. I'm also going to end up bolting up a mid pipe. I ended up just leaving the headers and no mid pipe because I was noticing on this new mid pipe I have that came with this dual exit exhaust, it doesn't have a port for the O2 sensor in between the cat and the muffler, kind of like this one. I pulled off of it. It's gonna be kind of hard to tell, but there's an O2 port right there, and this thing does have an O2 sensor somewhere kind of like right in this general area, and I'm not really too sure if I need it because this engine and exhaust and ECU all came from the same car, so I'm guessing they didn't run the second O2 sensor, so I don't think I really need to. So I might just try to figure that out. I'm gonna bolt up that one for now, and then if the check engine light comes on, then I probably know it's an O2 sensor. I could swap on the other mid pipe. But if not, I'll leave that one because I like this one. It's got a little bit nicer of a muffler on there. And then it kind of came with that one. So keep them together and then I can just sell that little kit. So I'm going to start this thing back up, get her running a little bit and then tune it up. And then I'll get back with you guys once I actually get this thing running nice and smooth. And then possibly get this thing off the stands and take it for a ride tomorrow. Because right now I think it's a little bit after a little 9 p.m. So probably not a good idea to drive this thing around, especially doesn't really have a plate and won't have much of an exhaust on it. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow when I got an update on this thing, and I'll see you then. So as you guys just seen by that last clip, I got the Miata idling at like 1,000 to 1,500, and I was literally filming that last clip and the GoPro battery literally died midway. So other than that, kind of got it figured out. I really think it has a bad idle control valve because whenever it's plugged in and I start it, it'll rev right up to 3 grand, but once I unplug it, drops down to 1,000 and then kind of creeps up just a little bit. It'll get up to like 15 to maybe 1,700 over time as it kind of warms up a little bit. But other than that, I was just letting it warm up for like 5-10 minutes, and then I did have a little pinhole pop in this fuel line right here. I really think it was just a fuel line because it kind of felt like vacuum line compared to this new fuel line I picked up from O'Reilly's, said fuel line. So tried it, didn't seem to work. Other than that, this new line seems to be doing way better. I also did pick up a new coolant hose for this side. I really do think I have something weird going on with this because it doesn't seem to be fitting 100% right. I think I need to lengthen the hose in the back here, just kind of bring this turn out a little bit more so I can kind of shoot it straight into the radiator a little bit better. So I might figure that out a little bit later, but for now, this should be pretty good to at least get it running, maybe possibly drive it around a little bit. I was just letting it idle at that point, and I was trying to figure out the coolant temp gauge in this thing is acting a little funny. It'll move up just slightly, but other than that, it don't move up to like the middle or even start getting hot. But I did notice the main fan kick on, but I don't really know how hot this thing is. Like the radiator gets way too hot to touch, but the hoses I can hold for a few seconds and then they're kind of too hot to handle. So I ended up picking up one of these thermometers so I can kind of just shoot the radiator hose and see what the temp's looking like. So I'm gonna finally let this thing warm up, see how long I can get it to warm up, and hopefully maintain operating temp. And then if it's so, I already got it off the stands, so we could possibly take this thing for a rip. I already did bleed the clutch line. I haven't tested it yet. I kind of tested it on the stands real quick, but other than that, I haven't tested it on the ground, see if it's actually fully disengaging the clutch and doing all that. So figure that out as well. But other than that, let's see if we can get this thing up to operating temp, and that'll be a huge plus right there. I'll probably just drive it like this just in case I have any issues. And I know I'm probably gonna have to notch the hood for the engine because I don't know if that's going to be fitting under the hood there. So we'll figure that out for another day. But let's get this thing running and we can finally hear this baby warm up. So I've been letting this thing idle for about 15-20 minutes, making sure it'll maintain operating temp, and so far it seems to be doing pretty good. Main fan came on about 3 times, and it's supposed to come on about 207 Fahrenheit. And I've been looking at all these coolant hoses. They don't seem to be going over like 205 to 210, so everything seems to be going good. Got it pulled off the wood as well, and then I felt the clutch going back and forth a little bit. Seems to be all right. It's just underneath the dash, it kind of clicks a little bit. I think I just need to adjust it a little bit, but other than that, it's getting sunset. Better time to test drive this thing. So wouldn't lie if I said I'm super nervous on taking this thing around, because this is actually gonna be my first time driving this thing completely and not having anyone here to tow it or help me push it home if I need to. So I'm just gonna cross my fingers everything goes good and just kind of put it around the neighborhood. I did raise it up ever since I pushed it out, so I shouldn't have any issues with kind of clearance and all that. So enough jibber jabber, let's take this thing for a ride and see how she goes. Alright, moment of truth. Still in the back, but it's all good. Make sure I don't hit anything. We're looking good. Alright, I part about not having a hood, you can see right at everything. Oh, I don't know what that noise is, but I gotta get that figured out ASAP. Other than that, it's driving good. What is that noise? I am so confused. It sounds, it might be the exhaust fell off. The exhaust might have just fell off. That definitely sounds like a dragging exhaust. Oopsie. I thought I tightened it up enough. We're right down the street from my house, so let me get this thing home and we'll check it out, see what that noise is. Alright, this is first look so far. Everything seems to be looking good. Don't see any leaks anywhere. Everything's looking good. Now let's see what that noise was. I got, the exhaust was falling off. Oopsie. I don't know if you guys can see that. The exhaust is literally dragging the ground back there. That's great. Well, I don't really have the axle back on there, so it should be alright. But everything else is looking good. Doesn't seem to be overheating. I gotta double check it because that fan is not on right now. But drove good. Super stoked on the first drive so far. I am beyond stoked on how fast this thing came together and how it hadn't had really any issue just going around the block like that. Because I remember on my turbo car, I had so many issues just trying to get that thing to go around the block. But super happy how this thing came out. And I really want to get the exhaust back on because I want to try burnout in this thing. I need to see if this clutch is working good. And these tires already smoked, so why not just hit it a little bit and then kind of end off this video with a good little clip. So let me slap that exhaust back on, maybe zip tie it up real quick, and let's get a little burnout going. So I'm beyond stoked on how this thing came out and performed on its first test drive, and even those first couple of burnouts. This thing felt so good, and doing those burnouts, I was barely anything on the brake at all. This thing just ate those tires like nothing, but they are bald and showing wires. That's why you saw the spark shooting from that back passenger one. But other than that, this thing did amazing. I'm super stoked on it, and I can't wait to get this thing finished up and get it all back together, like the hood, bumper, tidy up a few things in here, and then also get the exhaust on, because this thing is just way too loud right now. And I know once those burnouts were done, I had a couple neighbors coming out looking and kind of pissed at me, but it is what it is. I lived here forever, so you can't stop me from doing that. But I think that this video is probably like 20-25 minutes now, so don't want to bore you guys putting everything all back on, so I'll probably save that for next week's video. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, I hope you like, comment, subscribe, and peace out.